Pit Special is a Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster at Powerland in Finland. This ride opened in 2020, and Pit Special is not to be confused with Junker, another Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster located right next door with the exact same paint scheme and the same trains. While the rides have a similar appearance, they ride far differently. Whereas Junker is an intense blitz of forces, Pit Special is, well, special. In this video, I will review Pit Special and give my thoughts on this interesting coaster. In 2020, Powerland started erecting green track with white supports adjacent to Junker. Since the track color matched that of Junker, and it was located right next to Junker, a lot of enthusiasts thought that Powerland may be extending Junker, which would have been almost unheard of. But eventually, Powerland clarified that they were building an all-new roller coaster in Pit Special. While the decision to build two similar-looking coasters next to each other was odd, it does create a really cool visual as you approach the park and see what looks like one giant green coaster. It's also cool that you have to pass under Pit Special to enter the park. If you park in the main lot, the bridge into the park passes under Pit Special. Or if you park in the hotel lot, you have to drive underneath it. It creates a lot of kinetic energy for your entry experience. Pit Special isn't really themed. The name just references a type of plane, as with Junker. The queue line has a ramp leading into the station, and as seen on Junker and several other rides at Powerland, you have these paddles in each switchback, so you sort of have to go side to side as you move through the queue line. As I mentioned before, I'm not sure if they were added for distancing during COVID, but they were an odd quirk found on several rides. Pit Special is running two trains, each seating 8 riders, so I was a bit nervous what this coaster's throughput would be. I visited on a weekday towards the end of their summer season, and the coaster had a minimal wait all day. The ride was a total walk-on for the first hour, but I wouldn't advise riding it at that time for reasons I'll get into. At worst, I saw the line was about 15 to 20 minutes midday, and the crew would usually have the next train ready to go once the prior one hit the brakes. Part of that is how easy the restraints are to check on this coaster. Just like Junker, Pit Special has no seatbelts and just clamshell lap bar restraints. The staff does tend to push these down really hard, but again, that's the standard operating procedure with most of these Gerstlauer Eurofighters and Infinity coasters with this type of restraint. I do still enjoy the restraints even if they are tight, because I find the contouring comfortable and your entire upper body is free. In terms of seat selection, the front and back rows felt identical to me in terms of forces. The front was a little bit better for the unobstructed view though. Now on to the ride experience. Pit Special begins with a 143 foot or 44 meter tall vertical lift hill, making it the tallest coaster at Powerland by a very slim margin over Junker. And if Junker launches while you're on the lift, you get a pretty neat view of the coaster cresting its top hat if you look behind you. You then approach what looks like a vertical drop, but actually only has a max angle descent of 85 degrees. It's a curious decision why the coaster didn't get the usual beyond vertical drop found in most Gerstlauers, or even go vertical, but that symbolizes Pit Special perfectly. The coaster looks like it should be incredible, but many of the elements seem off and ride a bit awkwardly. That's especially true if you ride this coaster in the morning. It felt like Pit Special would valley on every single element, and unsurprisingly, this coaster has valleyed in the past. The first drop is easily the best part of the ride. While the airtime isn't quite as intense as your usual Eurofighter or Infinity coaster, presumably due to the less steep angle, the drop still delivers weak sustained ejector airtime the whole way down. You hit your max speed of 62 miles per hour or 100 kilometers per hour at the base of this drop, and then you're blasted by intense positive Gs. Pit Special pulls 4.5 Gs, and I started to gray out in all my rides. But at this point, Pit Special takes its foot off the gas. You then crawl through this giant ampersand element. It looks incredible off-ride. I salivated at the prospect of airtime and laterals together, but I got none of that. All this element did was make me think I'd valley. It was super slow and forceless. At the bottom of the ampersand, you regain most of your speed, and then you zip over a speed hill, which passes over the bridge into the park. And this hill delivers good ejector airtime. It's probably the single strongest airtime moment on the whole ride. That is followed by this large elongated S-hill. Like the ampersand, this element is pretty slow and forceless, and in the morning, it really does feel like you'll stall out here. The pull-up from the S-Hill does give some decent Gs once the coaster is warmed up at least. You then coast through a wave turn, which I believe is Gerstlauer's first attempt at the element that RMC popularized. And this is yet another element that seems to be taken too slowly. Especially in the morning, rather than giving airtime, Pitts Special instead causes you to fall downwards due to the lack of speed. It's an awkward bit of lateral hang time. When the coaster is warmed up though, you get some very weak floater airtime that pulls you sideways, which I think is how the element is supposed to ride. That's followed by another S-Hill. In the morning, this hill was another forceless dud, but when the coaster warmed up, it was an interesting element. It gave a tiny bit of floater airtime, but what really stood out were the laterals. You get this very abrupt lateral jolt that comically slams you to the side. I enjoyed how raw and untamed it felt. You then glide over back-to-back bunny hills. The first passes over a bridge, while the second leads into the brake run. These bunny hills do not have the sharpest crests, and in the morning, like several elements, these were duds. You got no airtime in those conditions. When the ride is warmed up, you get very weak floater airtime. It was a bummer this coaster didn't finish with more of a bang, but that's par for the course when it comes to Pitts Special. When you hit the brake run, you end the 2,274 foot or 693 meter long coaster, and it left me scratching my head. Seeing all the camelbacks and bunny hills made me think this coaster would be jam-packed with airtime, which would complement the lateral and inversion-based layout of Junker. But that wasn't the case. Pitts Special is just so awkwardly paced. While it has a few really nice elements, like the first drop and first speed hill, it crawls through much of its layout, and the forces suffer as a result. 75% of this coaster feels like a family ride rather than the thrill ride that it's supposed to be. In terms of smoothness, Pitts Special has a bit of a shuffle on some of the twisting elements, but I didn't find it uncomfortable due to the restraint system. This shuffle is something you'll find on a lot of Gerstlauers. So what would I rate Pitts Special? I would give this coaster a 6 out of 10. It's a fun ride, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I came off disappointed. The coaster looks so much better than it actually is. This coaster is dragged down by the atrocious pacing. Almost every element feels a bit too tall or elongated for its own good. That makes the standout elements like the first drop, speed hill, and final S-Hill even more shocking when they occur because they're a stark contrast to the rest of the ride. Just make sure to ride the coaster in the afternoon if possible. A lot of coasters speed up throughout the day, but the difference on Pitts Special was particularly noticeable. Junker is easily the better ride for reasons I go into in a separate review, but Pitts Special still adds something to Powerland's lineup, and it is fairly enjoyable, even if it's not too sure if it wants to be a thrill ride or a family ride. So those are my thoughts on Pitts Special, the newest roller coaster at Powerland. What are your thoughts on the Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster? Do you think it's a good fit for Powerland? I would love to hear your thoughts about this coaster down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.